What is up? Welcome into yet another edition of the Ben Garcia Show. Thank you so much for making us a part of your day, however you're watching, however you are following, whether it's on Spotify, Apple Podcasts for free on the iHeartRadio app, or you're putting a face to the voice and you are watching on YouTube. We appreciate that as well. Just a little love to all the supporters and all the quote-unquote fans out there of me. I don't want to act like I'm this big hot shot just yet. Maybe someday in the sports commentary world, but for now, I'm just a guy talking in my apartment into my microphone, talking all things sports, but the love has been insane recently. We are getting a lot of views. We're getting a lot of subscribers recently, so thank you for joining the Ben Garcia Show audience. I'll try to continue to keep you guys as entertained as I can. For those of you that don't know, I do work in Phoenix. I cover a lot of Arizona sports stuff, so I'm always going to tend to put an emphasis on that, but I love talking all things sports, so we're going to continue to label it like that. So without further ado, let's get started in our top story of this show. Not a ton of things going on in the sports world right now. Just have a couple of stories for you guys. And then we'll continue to break it down through the week as more stories develop. But this one's interesting. Kevin Durant did an interview with Yahoo Sports a few days ago, condemning the media, calling them liars, condemning fans out there who just label Kevin Durant as a journeyman, a guy that doesn't stick around with teams, which is absolutely true and fair. And Kevin Durant, you know, I've heard this before. This is not the first time anyone has made this comp, but it does make sense. Kevin Durant is a lot like Aaron Rodgers, a lot like Aaron Rodgers of the basketball world. He speaks, we listen, and the one thing I've always given Kevin Durant more love for than other people in the media have is he's authentic, he's real, he's personable, and he is going to tell you exactly what he thinks. Now, just with all things that I love, not everything is 100% positive. Kevin Durant can be honest. Sometimes he shouldn't be. And no one in the Phoenix sports landscape, real media members who have been taking care or watching the Suns all year long, no one thinks that Kevin Durant is actually getting traded. No one thinks that. Matt Ishbia has made it very clear. Kevin Durant's not going anywhere. Everyone has made it abundantly clear, from the Phoenix Suns to Matt Ishbia, Kevin Durant is not going anywhere. But for Kevin Durant to go on Yahoo Sports, and I love it. He's honest. It gives us great content to react to. But to act appalled or shocked that when media people make up stories or when media people use his name for clicks, that people believe them. If Steph Curry were to put out, or a report came out about Steph Curry, that he was indeed looking for a trade, he wanted out of Golden State, everyone would say, yeah, I'm not believing this until it comes from Steph Curry's mouth, because that's out of character for Stephen Curry. We would never expect that from Stephen Curry, and we would never expect him to want to leave Golden State. Kevin Durant is the complete opposite. Kevin Durant has left everywhere he's gone. He is a journeyman. Now, he's an elite-level superstar, top 20 player in the NBA journeyman, but a journeyman nonetheless. That's what Kevin Durant is. So when I see Kevin Durant going at the media for calling them liars, for making up stories, fabricating stories, it's mid-July. That's what the media does. Kevin Durant doesn't get to be a worldwide renowned basketball superstar without the celebrity part. People are going to use his name. No one's using Harrison Barnes' name when he comes out and says he wants to be traded. No one. No one is using CJ McCollum's idea of wanting to be traded away. CJ McCollum demanding a trade isn't moving the needle. No one cares. Kevin Durant has demanded a trade before. Kevin Durant has left multiple places in which the situation was pretty ideal, most notably in Golden State. So Kevin Durant can be upset with the media that they're using his name for clicks, which isn't fair, but it happens. You have to accept that that stuff just happens. It's not cool. No one likes when people lie, but it happens. LeBron James was in all sorts of vet minimum trades, or could he go to the 76ers? And it was all BS at the end of the day. And we didn't hear anything from LeBron. We heard from LeBron's agent briefly, just shutting down the ridiculous nonsense for LeBron James potentially taking a vet minimum. Why is it Kevin Durant is the only superstar in the NBA that gets upset when the media doesn't personally call him to let him know he's going to be used in a report in which, outside of Stephen A. Smith, I don't know of anyone who came out and said Kevin Durant wants to be traded. We've saw multiple media outlets come out and say other teams think they might want to get Kevin Durant, but we also heard that with Devin Booker. Adrian Wojnarowski came out and said that. He said the Houston Rockets are going to try to get Devin Booker, and Matt Ishbia promptly turned that down. Kevin Durant has to stop acting shocked when people believe reports that are either made up or absolutely true about him wanting to leave whatever team he's on. Kevin Durant has put that persona on himself. Not Shams Charania, not Adrian Wojnarowski, not Chris Haynes. Kevin Durant did it. Chris Haynes, Adrian Wojnarowski, Shams Charania didn't tell Kevin Durant to leave Oklahoma City. They didn't tell Kevin Durant to leave Golden State. They didn't tell Kevin Durant to leave Brooklyn and form another team in Phoenix after Brooklyn blew up, mostly because of him. That's what happens. They didn't tell him to do that. He did it. No one believes a report that would come out right now saying Steph Curry wants to be traded. They would all say, we need to hear that from Steph Curry. But Kevin Durant has set a persona up for himself that he's a career wanderer. He is a journeyman, although elite, just the journeyman in a sense that he doesn't stay in the same place for very long. He has set that persona up for himself. No one else. And it drives me crazy when Kevin Durant acts like he didn't leave Oklahoma City when he blew a 3-1 lead. Or he didn't leave Golden State after winning 2 championships, which was a comfortable situation. He didn't leave Brooklyn worse than how he found it. And now Phoenix isn't working. So I don't blame people who see reports that are either fabricated or true that Kevin Durant could want to be moved from whatever team he's on. No one believes that if it's Steph Curry coming out and saying he could want to trade. No one believes a report that says Steph Curry wants to be traded. They have to hear it from Steph Curry because that doesn't look, sound, or smell like something Steph Curry would do. But it does sound like something Kevin Durant would do. I see a possible trade rumor for Kevin Durant. I go, yeah, there's a potential that might be true. And it might be leaked from Kevin Durant's camp. It's awesome that Kevin Durant wants to stay in Phoenix. Cool. I think part of that is he knows that he can't do it again because people will really come for his neck in terms of a basketball sense. But here's the biggest issue. Instead of just letting Matt Ishbia handle it, instead of just letting the Suns refute every report and letting Stephen A. Smith look like an idiot who was the only guy who actually reported Kevin Durant wanted to be gone, no other major outlets reported that. It's frustrating when Kevin Durant is focusing on that and not focusing in interviews or being asked in interviews, hey, why was the season such a failure? Hey, what are you guys going to do to get better? Hey, you don't have a lot of moves you can make this offseason. Can the big three actually work? Can they coexist? I would love Kevin Durant's candid answer of that. Not Kevin Durant's candid answers of him being upset because the media is quote-unquote liars, which everyone knows that. We have an election season coming up. No one trusts the media, not even me, and I'm part of it. But instead of hearing from Kevin Durant what went wrong this season, we're hearing Kevin Durant get emotional, which that's what it is, get emotional, because people used his name for clickbait. Just call it what it is. So it gets frustrating when Kevin Durant doesn't see the big picture here. And it gets frustrating that when Kevin Durant goes full Devontae Adams and wants people to say, well, don't worry about what the team does, worry about what I do. There's a lot of players in the NBA that put up good stats on a bad team. It's not impressive. There's a reason why people will always look at Michael Jordan as the GOAT. He's the greatest winner, 6 for 6 in finals, and he made the NBA global because just how mesmerizing he was with his talents. No one cares about how good your stats are on a team that isn't working. No one. Not me, not the fans, not casual NBA fans. And Kevin Durant not working in another team in which he kind of put together, or at least helped orchestrate behind the scenes to put together, whether it was talking with Devin Booker, whether it was recruiting Bradley Beal. It gets frustrating that Kevin Durant wants all the praise, but none of the criticism that comes with being an NBA superstar, that comes with being a top 15 player of all time. There's actual things I would like to hear from Kevin Durant. And him being emotional because the media is lying on his name is not one of them. I would like to know how they're going to fix the Phoenix Suns, who are hamstrung and handicapped with what they can do this offseason. How is he going to change? How is he going to hold people accountable? How is he going to be a leader? But Kevin Durant has no interest in that. Or at least it seems like he has no interest in that. He just wants to hoop. He just wants to get good stats. And if the team wins a championship, awesome. If not, he wants you to know his individual greatness was awesome. He wants you to know all about it. And that's the biggest problem with Kevin Durant. He cares more about his individual greatness than the team's success of winning a championship. And that is always a recipe and a thought process for disaster for a team like the Phoenix Suns. There's an interesting topic out there regarding Brandon Aiyuk. You know, you see the San Francisco 49ers, and you think they have talent everywhere. They have talent to spare. They could replenish the draft system with more added picks by getting rid of Brandon Aiyuk. Brandon Aiyuk has been a head case. Brandon Aiyuk has been a distraction. And noisy off seasons almost always and typically lead to disappointing regular seasons. I'm lower on the Cincinnati Bengals than everyone else, given how noisy they've been, whether it's contract extensions for T. Higgins or other issues. Brandon Aiyuk has been a disruption to the locker room. And it leads me to think, why are the San Francisco 49ers dealing with this? Why are the San Francisco 49ers willing to deal with all of this in a league where you can find wide receivers everywhere? The supply and demand is not a problem. There's enough wide receivers to go around in the NFL. You could give up Brandon Aiyuk, get a solid wide receiver back, and get a few picks for him. Potentially a first-round pick. Who knows? But it's clear the San Francisco 49ers are not going to pay Brandon Aiyuk. And he just came off his best season in the pros. It's very possible Brandon Aiyuk is never as elite as he was last season. It's highly possible. He could get injured. His trade value can only go down. His trade value can only go down this year. It's not possible to me that I believe he can be a top 3 wide receiver when there's so many mouths to feed in this San Francisco offense. It's very clear where Brandon Aiyuk wants to be. He wants to go be with his buddy or Jaden Daniels. Both guys went to ASU. Not sure if that overlapped at a time. Potentially it did. I would say no, though. But Brandon Aiyuk clearly wants to be on the Washington Commanders. The Washington Commanders have not necessarily been a well-run organization over the past its entire existence. Its entire existence, it hasn't been a great organization. If there's a team willing to give up way too much for a wide receivers market who will never be as high, why wouldn't they give up why wouldn't they give up Brandon Aiyuk for what the Commanders could offer? Why not? I've thought about this. And here is my hypothesis on why the San Francisco 49ers are so hesitant to ship Brandon Aiyuk out of this locker room. He's been a head case. He's been noisy. He's been disruptive. And like I mentioned before, noisy and loud off seasons almost always lead to teams with disappointing regular seasons. You just want to be out of that business. And if Brock Purdy is as elite as the San Francisco 49ers tell me he is, and as San Francisco 49ers fans tell me he is, and now people in the media who are too scared to swing a bat when it comes to giving commentary in sports think he is, if Brock Purdy is so elite, why would he be so beholden to Brandon Aiyuk? In which a lot of people would say is the second best wide receiver on their own team. Now, I wouldn't necessarily say that, but Deebo Samuel's there, and the kid from Florida's there, and Christian McCaffrey's there, and George Kittle's there. The San Francisco 49ers, and this is just my hypothesis, this is why I believe the San Francisco 49ers won't trade Brandon Aiyuk. They're not completely sold on Brock Purdy either. They believe, just like how I believe, Brock Purdy is somewhere between the 10th to 15th best quarterback in the NFL. And without all that talent, Brandon Aiyuk, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey, the Trent Williams on the offensive line, he wouldn't be as awesome as he is. And it's not to say Brock Purdy sucks. There's people out there that are completely the other direction. Brock Purdy's terrible. That's not true. But it's almost like the San Francisco 49ers are putting up with all this nonsense with Brandon Aiyuk because they don't trust Brock Purdy to go out there and win games with one less weapon until they know if the kid from Florida can actually play. It's almost like the San Francisco 49ers are giving it one last go around with Brock Purdy. It's almost they want to go one more season. Let's see if Brock Purdy can be as good as he was the past season and a half. Another year in the system with all these weapons. Let's try to win a Super Bowl. But it's almost as if they won't trade Brock Purdy. It's almost as if they won't trade Brandon Aiyuk because they're not completely sold on Brock Purdy. It's almost like they know if Brandon Aiyuk is gone, we're not entirely sure Brock Purdy can be as reliable and as good as he's been over the past season and a half. It's almost as if the San Francisco 49ers need to see one more season before they give Brock Purdy a massive $60 million extension with all these weapons and see if he can replicate what he did the past couple of years. Because if Brock Purdy struggles to be the guy that he has been the past year and a half, statistically speaking, we know in the playoffs he wasn't very good. It's almost as if the 49ers saw those playoff performances. In the Super Bowl, he was fine. And up until the last drives of the Green Bay Packers and Lions game, he wasn't very good. It took a bounced ball off of a Detroit Lions player head for them to get back in that game. It's almost as if the San Francisco 49ers are so hesitant to trade Brandon Aiyuk, despite all of his controversy, despite all of his disruptiveness, despite his ability to potentially derail that locker room with how much of an annoyance he's been in that San Francisco 49ers locker room. It's almost as if they're willing to deal with all these issues with Brandon Aiyuk because they need to see if Brock Purdy is indeed the guy he has been over the past year and a half statistically. It's almost as if The San Francisco 49ers don't believe in Brock Purdy enough to take away one weapon from him. Do you remember what Brock Purdy was without Deebo Samuel and Trent Williams at times? Struggled to complete passes in the Packers playoff game. Struggled and lost 3 straight games to the Browns, Vikings, and another team which name is escaping me. I believe it was the Cincinnati Bengals. It's almost as if when the stars are really bright, when the lights are really bright, and everyone is watching Brock Purdy, they know deep down he's not actually this elite player that we're telling everyone he is, and that San Francisco 49ers fans are projecting he is. It's almost as if they know if they take just one weapon away from Brock Purdy and one that's as good as Brandon Aiyuk, it could all come tumbling down. We saw that in the Packers game in the playoffs last year when they lost Deebo Samuel. Couldn't really move the ball very well. The Lions, that game, 3/4 of it wasn't very good. And then in the Super Bowl, when he had all of his weapons, all healthy, he was pretty good. He was good. That's what Brock Purdy is to me. Good. But it's almost as if the San Francisco 49ers are so hesitant to trade Brandon Aiyuk because they're worried about how well Brock Purdy will adjust to, instead of having 4 all-pro elite level players on their offense, he has 3. We've seen what happened in the regular season, lost 3 straight games when he was down a couple of those key players. I don't think it's crazy. For a team like the San Francisco 49ers have been able to develop talent, I do find it very fishy that they're so begrudgant in holding on to Brandon Aiyuk. And I think a lot of the reason why they're holding on to Brandon Aiyuk is because they're just not sure about Brock Purdy just yet. They'd like to see it again and again and again. And if Brock Purdy struggles this year, or maybe comes back down to reality, to what I think he is, a top 12 to 14 quarterback in the NFL, that's when the San Francisco 49ers know who to pay. Brandon Aiyuk and not Brock Purdy. And to figure out where they would go from there. I don't think it's crazy. That's all I have for you guys today. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Ben Garcia Show. It has been a wild roller coaster of emotions on this show. It's been great. I only wanted to get to a couple of topics for you guys. We'll get to more very soon. More Ben Garcia Show content coming out to you guys. And until the next show, it's been the Ben Garcia Show.